Hello, Internet, and welcome back to another episode of the Ideas About God podcast. I'm your host, or one of your hosts. My name is Josh Wise.
And I am Fabian. I am the other host. Ideas About God is a podcast where we talk about life, pop culture, theology, all with the hopes of making ideas about God interesting, fun, helpful, applicable, whatever it may be for you, or entertaining.
Maybe.
Yeah, that too. Just sometimes that's all we need in life.
Yep.
Really quick before we continue with the episode, please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening to this so that people can find this content. Maybe leave us a review in any of those places like Apple Podcasts or Spotify. 5 stars only, as we say. We're a budding podcast, and so we need the 5 stars.
We need the 5 stars.
They go a long way.
Yep.
So yeah, just love us, lavish love on us. Once we have thousands of listeners, then you can.
Then you can be honest about your criticisms.
So we are wrapping up our Process Party series.
Yeah.
Are you excited or bummed?
Man, it's been really fun to think about these things for like the last 2 months.
Yeah.
It's been really cool. I've had a good time.
Yeah, it's been fun. I feel like I've learned a lot, and I'm excited to wrap it up. I'm excited to kind of get like we're gonna hopefully expand here to like multiple mics, and so maybe get some other people on and have some guests and have some fun with it. So that'll be fun. We'll see what the episodes that come out after this. We won't have a series to go on for a while unless we come up with some other series. But we're going to wrap this up with Q&A.
Yes.
So we have some questions from listeners in this bowl. We got this when we got married. Their Fiesta wear stuff,
It's nice.
The kind of stuff that like you put on your registry and you're never going to buy yourself, but if somebody else buys it for you.
It's nice. It's nice to have. We had a few of those things. Yeah.
So it's
like,
nice.
It's question is like, are you going to use it? Like, that's the thing. I'm like, there are some things I'm like, oh man, I haven't touched this in a while. Like I have a waffle maker at home and I love waffles.
Yeah. Oh yes.
But like, I don't make waffles.
Same here.
Like I'm like, if I'm out somewhere, I'll get a waffle. Yeah. That sounds nice. Yeah. But am I going to make a waffle at home on a Saturday morning? I don't know. Maybe that'll change.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. But for now, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, so on that thought,
okay.
We're just gonna go on a tangent right now.
Let's do it.
Q&A episode. This is Wild West. Thick Belgian style waffles or like thinner waffles? What do you prefer?
I don't know. They both have like their place. Yeah. I don't know. Like I like there's something like a good thick hearty Belgian waffle. Yeah. That's,
with just a bunch of crap on it.
Yeah, and you load that thing up, and you're like,
whipped cream.
This is gonna
peanut butter in the crevices.
Yes,
like whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's where it's at for me. Yeah, I think that's where I'm at. Like they're the ones that kind of like get a little more bougie. Yeah. A little more like like you paid a lot for this brunch, didn't you? Kind of waffle.
Yeah.
Those like. I don't know, like they're fine, but also I'm like, I just paid $10 for this waffle. Like, are you serious? Like,
dude, brunch is highway robbery.
It is breakfast food. It is breakfast food that they think is fancy.
Cheap, yes,
and they're like, yo, we're gonna charge like $15-$20 for this eggs Benedict, and watch these suckers pay.
Yes,
like,
and they will.
And they will
because that's what you do, right?
Because fucking white people love brunch, man.
Oh man.
God.
Oh yeah. Well, on that note, let's go into our Q&A. So the way we're gonna do this, just to let you all know, is we're gonna take turns, and we're just gonna pick a piece of paper out of this bowl that has some questions.
Okay.
And so we'll just answer them. The person who picks it out will answer it first, and the person that didn't pick it out, if they have something to say, they can. If they're like, no, good, that was adequate, we'll move on. I don't know if we'll get to all of them, but we'll dive in. Who wants to go first? Should we do a little rock, paper, scissors right here?
Let's rock, paper, scissors for it.
All right, rock paper, scissors, shoot. All right, I'm going to go first.
Do it.
Well, actually, no, I won, so I get to choose who goes. I want to go first.
You want to go first?
Yeah, I'm going to go first. Okay, all so... Right.
Let it rip.
So let's see what we got here. I know who this one comes from. It's your father.
Okay.
How does process theology talk about miracles? So I get that one first. That's interesting. So actually might defer to you because you probably have a more robust answer for this one, I guess initially my thought would be that it probably depends on the process theologian. There are probably some, because the way we've talked about it is that, consent, or that God sort of invites at every level of creation. But I'm sure that process theologians differ. Right. And so I'm guessing it depends on who you talk to, because this is a broad field. So maybe I'll answer it kind of personally how I think about miracles.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
I guess for me, and maybe you can, go more into the, like, what different people say, but for me, the way I think about miracles is, it is, I guess my definition of miracles is pretty expansive.
Okay.
Like, I think it's miraculous that we are here and have breath. I mean, like, from a sort of science perspective, the percentage chance of there being life on this planet based off a myriad of numbers is already miraculous,
right,
in my mind. And so I think that's a part of it. Do I seek something extra normal or metaphysical to happen to change the physics of the way that we live our lives? I don't know if that happens or not. I guess I chalk that up to mystery. But I guess, for me, my definition of miracle is pretty expansive. And so I also don't think that God necessarily chooses to heal one person and not heal someone else, because of sort of that understanding that God invites creation into the next unfolding moment, and that is the miracle in and of itself.
So
where would you take it?
Well, so my thoughts on it are similar to yours. Like, I also think, like, the whole thing is miraculous, right? I got to see my wife and I were expecting, our first kid, and when we went to go see on the sonogram, like, it moved.
Yeah.
And at first, like, I was like, wait, I didn't know if it moved, or if it was like, because she was moving the sonogram wand around, and I didn't know if it moved, or like the screen moved. But then she got, like, back on again and focused again, and like, I'm like, sure enough, little buggers kicking around in there.
Yeah.
And like, that's a miracle.
Yeah.
Like, that's amazing. I mean, granted, it's a very natural thing that happens, when a man and a woman love each other very much, right? Like, no, but like it's like one of the most natural things that mammals have been doing for millions of years.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, like, in that sonogram room, I'm like, oh, this is miraculous.
Yeah.
Like, this is amazing. Isn't this incredible? And so, like, and also, like, I give that answer, and also, like, I could see that being like, oh, that's a cheap cop out.
Yeah.
Do you believe in miracles? And so, like, I guess, like, if you think about the definition of a miracle, where, like, God breaks the rules of the universe, like, breaks some sort of rule of physics or chemistry or something to cause something to happen, then I don't know.
Yeah.
So, like, can God, like, break, like, the rules of biology to, like, heal someone of their cancer? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I do believe weird shit happens.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes, like, someone has cancer and then it goes into remission all of a sudden out of nowhere, and I'm like, we don't know why.
Yeah.
That's miraculous.
Yeah.
Now, does it any less miraculous if someone were to look at that case in 50 years and notice, like, oh, like, this is actually the mechanism that caused that?
Yeah.
Does that change the fact that it was miraculous for that family in that waiting room that experienced that?
Yeah.
No. And also, so I guess I don't believe that, like, God comes in, like, bulldozing in and, like, breaking, Newton's, laws of physics. I don't think it works that way, but I also, like, believe that this universe has enough weirdness in it that sometimes, like, random shit happens, and you have, like, a miracle that's awesome.
Yeah.
But also on the flip side of that, like, have you seen the movie Nope?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, like remember the bad miracle?
Yeah.
Right? Like sometimes the physics breaks in the wrong way.
Yeah.
And just it's bad,
Yeah.
right? There's also room for that. However, I choose to believe that God is on the is in the process of inviting the universe into love and things like that. I don't know. So
I have some thoughts actually to kind of bounce off of that. So kind of the thing that I thought about when you first were talking about is, you said people might say it's a cop-out to say, watching my child move, which is a natural thing, is a miracle. Yeah. I actually think it's not. Yeah. Because I think ultimately miracles are subjective, always.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Because what you're talking about is if you get down to the nitty-gritty, like at some point in history, people would pray for there to be rain. Mm-hmm. And when it rained, they would believe, if they prayed, they would believe that, well, we affected that, or maybe that was God creating a miracle. Well, now we have the Weather Channel,
right? Yeah,
that tells us when it's going to rain.
Yeah,
because we've gotten so good at predicting weather patterns and all of that. Mm-hmm. So we've sort of taken these things that used to be thought as miracles, and now we're like, well, scientifically, we've found out that we know how they happen.
Yeah.
So I think because we don't know everything there is to know about how the universe works, in a sense, miracles are all subjective, anyways.
Yeah,
and I think that's cool.
Yeah.
I think it's cool to just say, you know what, today I experienced a miracle. My niece fell asleep on my lap while I was playing Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom.
Nice.
That's a miracle.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And I just had this moment with her. I don't care if it's natural things that happened. It was something meaningful for me. Mm-hmm. And if you get down to the bottom of nature and physics and quantum mechanics, it's weird anyways. You can take an atom, split it in half, have half of it in New York and half of it in LA, and if you spin the half one way, it will spin the same way the other half that's in LA.
Yeah.
That is weird.
That's weird.
That's science though. And so because we don't know everything there is to know about how the universe works, in some way it is subjective, right?
Yeah.
It is, so we can call it a miracle.
Yeah.
If we want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that's what I think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
So yeah.
I like that.
Cool. Feel good about that one?
I do feel good about that one.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
All right.
Next one. What do you think? Yeah.
My turn?
Yeah, your turn.
Okay. Him. If God is inviting us into the process, does that mean, in a sense, controlling our direction? If God is inviting us to love our neighbor, couldn't you say God does have a will or plan? So I guess, what is the question? So it seems to me that the question is asking, God is inviting us into a process. Does that mean does God still have a direction or plan?
Yeah.
To the universe that God, does God have a thing? I think that God wants places to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What do you think?
Okay. So I think yes. I think God does have and this is where I think it comes down to a matter of personal faith. That yes, I do believe that there's a future state that God is inviting us into. To me, I think that future state is one defined by love, one defined by justice, one defined by people taking care of each other, and one defined by people living in balance with themselves, with nature. Maybe a word that we could use to describe it is shalom. And it's this idea that there's I think we kind of picked up, and this is maybe where some process theology is kind of I kind of stray from some more traditional upbringing, but there's this idea that I grew up with that one day God is going to come and force everything to be right again. Yeah. God is going to come in and either it's going to be there's however you thought Revelations was going to play out, because everyone had their own maps and charts and junk like that. They all kind of held in common that at the end of it all, God is going to make things right. And then there's going to be an event. God is going to make things right. On the other side of that event is going to be perfection.
Yeah.
Right. We're going to have reached the ideal. I am of the opinion that I don't think there is. It's like an asymptote in math, right? It's like this line that we can approach, but maybe we never truly get there. However, we can like get close or can get closer, right? We can because I think like whenever you have humans, like where 2 or 3 are gathered, you're going to have conflict. Yeah. And the question is, how do we manage that conflict, right? So I think God has like a future that he is inviting all of us into where we can find peace and harmony and shalom, where we can live in balance with the planet and balance with like each other. We can live in balance with our own selves, right? How many of us don't even have that, right? Like we can live into that sort of like space. And then also there's like this idea of like, oh, like creativity and new beginnings, right? It's not like, because that was another part of like, you get to like this perfection state and then it's like we all just hit like a pause button, everything just goes like locks in place, right? Whereas like no, like maybe God isn't wanting things to be static. God is like wanting like, oh, like we keep making new things. We keep getting creative. We keep making new paintings. We keep we keep making new art. We keep like making cool new stuff, and we keep doing that. Like I think that's where God is wanting us to go, and God is inviting us to go there. So I think there's a directionality to it, but also that comes from a sense of like we can also not do that. Right. Like history has shown that we as a species do not have a great track record when it comes to learning how to live together well. I think we've done it better in some time frames than others, but like we as a species, like, you know, like we struggle with conflict. So I don't know. I think there's I think we can learn. Like we can evolve. I think we can grow as a species.
I think you described it really well, that if you talk to many process or open relational people, they would probably say something similar, that, well, God wills, like that God is inviting because God is willing towards a direction. There's a difference between having a will towards a direction and determining the outcome. It's like when you raise a child, like would you like to play baseball or soccer? And ultimately, the sort of will behind that is that they try things so that they kind of become whatever version of themselves that they become. But if you have an end goal of like, I want them to become a professional soccer player, that is a completely different thing, right? You're going to parent them differently. I think for me personally, so I don't have a lot to add in terms of sort of the theoretical side of it. This is I think a personal question for me is, what brought me into Christianity was there being some direction. And I think that in all my sort of deconstruction and like wrestling with things, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, that like when I was in seminary, I was reading Serene Jones, and one of the things she said is that God wills flourishing for everybody. And I truly believe that. Like, if there is a God, which I believe there is, or at least I have some sort of trust that there is something, that God wants everything to flourish. Now, what flourishing means can be slightly subjective, right? Right. But I tend to think that means things like justice. That means things like equality and equity. That means things like love. That means things like healing and the opposite of some of the destructive experiences. And so for me, I can't live a life now, and maybe maybe in the future that might change, but I can't live a life now where I don't believe there's something willing, some direction towards flourishing. Because, and this is not everybody, this is just me, I would spiral into nihilism. And like, I would see no reason not to just not care about anything, I like not love and not, all these things. And not that's the answer for everybody. That's just me processing it with myself. So like, I love and I do things in the world because I believe there's something. Like, I'm just hoping. I'm hoping there's some direction. There's something. There's this arc of justice. And even if we are the ones that are bending it that way, that like there's a potential to bend it that way.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty hopeless. Like the world is really ugly, and there's some like really bad people.
Yeah.
Doing bad things. Maybe they're not necessarily inherently bad, but just like there's some bad players playing a chess game with people's lives, playing poker with people's lives, just betting and doing whatever they want. And I just hope and believe that there's goodness and, and so, for me, it's like, even if there's not an outcome, I never really grew up with a clear idea of like end times and what God's going to do. And, was Catholic and then like went to Methodism. And so there's always, in both of those sort of spaces, there's the belief that you as a person can grow rather than just like you're so wretched and you just need to be covered by the blood of Jesus and there's nothing you can do. So like I tend to believe there's growth, and I see that in people. Like I see that play out. And I guess maybe to talk a little bit about the theoretical is, to me, it's proof that there is a God that wills that we will.
Yeah.
That we want things like love.
Yeah.
That we want things like justice and connection with other human beings. That we want things like beauty and they do something to us. That laughter is, so hearty and good for our souls. Yeah. I think that's proof, right? In my mind, like it's not concrete, like scientific evidence. It's just, for me, it's like, okay, the fact that we will, that there's something maybe that brings in some of like Aquinas, who talks about natural law, but like that there's something within us that desires.
Yeah.
I think that is a God.
Yeah.
That is, to me, that's proof of a God that wills. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I like it. That's good.
Cool. All right. Next one. Cool. How we doing?
I think we're good.
Feeling good? Okay. This is fun. Okay. How do you think about prayer through the lens of process theology? Do you pray? And what's the purpose of prayer for you? There's kind of two parts. There's like the sort of personal, what do you think about prayer? And do you want to split that up, or do you just want to do it all in chunks with like?
I don't care.
Yeah. All right.
If you do them both. What do you think?
I think from a process lens, I'm not as well versed in sort of process theology as Josh is. I think maybe what process theology would say is that prayer is a way for us to sort of listen to that invitation or sort of align ourselves with that invitation of God, the will of God towards flourishing or love. So it's a less God doing something, and maybe there is some element of that. I guess, like, again, it might vary. There might be some people that say if prayer might, because like if you read scripture and interpret it a certain way, like God responds to prayer, and so maybe you pray, I hope that somebody sees things in a different light, or that they change their mind about something. Then maybe God might invite stronger. I don't know. I don't know if that's but yeah, that's, I guess, maybe let's break it up. What's sort of the process view on this, and then in personal prayer?
So I guess from a process perspective, how do I think? Do I think that when I pray that something happens? I don't know, maybe. Like I still hold on to the side. Like I still think like I don't think that necessarily, like, because I'm praying that for God to like heal something, or like to heal, like, so if like you have a sick kid or something like that, and you're like, God, like heal this person or something like that. I don't know. Like, I think, does that change something inside God? I don't know. Like, I think hopefully God wants that person to be better too.
Yeah.
So I don't know what, if anything, happens in prayer, honestly. But like, also at the same time, it seems really dismissive to also just to be like, oh, like when we just pray, it just makes us feel better. Like it's really dismissive just to be like, oh, like this is just your way of crying out with your frustrations, like, and like yes, but also like fuck you for saying that. Like, that seems, it just seems really dismissive. So I don't know. Like I personally don't know if anything happens because you pray about it. Yeah. However, I know that when I pray for things, like I focus on them more. Like if I'm praying for someone and I hope that like they make different life choices or something like that, like I find myself to be more conscious about them, and my thoughts turn to them more, and I maybe I reach out more or find ways that I can help. I think it invites us to turn our minds and point ourselves towards what we're praying towards, and so that we can help in our way.
Yeah.
And maybe God does something with that. I don't know. It's like we kind of already talked about miracles, I guess. So I don't know if anything ontologically happens. I do know there's something good about like hearing your own like thoughts, put them out loud, like to take them out and like put them out in the ether, and like that feels good. It's also dismissive just to say that's all that happens. I just know for me, like I can't say one way or another whether anything happens whether you pray. To take the second part, like, so like, do you pray? Honestly, not really.
Yeah.
I feel real bad admitting that, but hey,
you're a seminary dropout, so
I'm a seminary dropout. Like, what do you expect, right? I find myself thinking, like laying in bed at night and reminiscing through my day, and thinking like, oh, that was a really great moment, and I'm grateful for that moment. I think about moments where like I made mistakes and I'm like, man, that wasn't great. I should try to be more gracious or whatever. Like I wasn't, or something, like find ways to think about those moments and hopefully try to if the same situations arise in the future, maybe be better. I'm thinking about like my relationships, and I'm thinking about people I care about, and like wishing them well and wondering how they're doing if I haven't talked to them in a while. I find myself thinking about like people I've lost and been like, oh, like I do miss them, and so that's, it's not prayer, but for me, it's like, it ticks a lot of the same boxes.
Yeah.
For me. And I leave hopefully falling asleep with like a sense of gratitude and a sense of, either gratitude, or if something's really bothering me, kind of like feeling like, well, maybe finding some resolution in it. I don't know. Like, so for me, it's like prayer feels more like just like thinking about stuff, and also just like listening to, wisdom or whatever, like it's become something, it's much less like I'm going to say these words at the ceiling because I hope someone's listening. It's become much more of a, I don't know, like a meditative, like experience or practice that I just kind of do sometimes as I'm falling asleep. I don't know.
Yeah. For me personally, so in college, I got involved in a church that had prayer in the name. If you're in Kansas City, you probably have an idea.
Oh yeah.
There's a
they also do great breakfasts.
Yeah, pancake restaurant that has a similar acronym. And so prayer was a huge part of it, but it was like that kind of out loud prayer, and they had different variations. Yeah. Like there was Korean style prayer where everybody's praying out loud, but I had a lot of trouble with prayer after I left that church and kind of like deconstructed some of my, faith, because in that space, it was very performative. It was like, who can pray the best and the most vigorously and use like these lavish words for God? Like, like who has sort of this, it felt very performative.
Yeah.
And then also like, there was this belief that like God does do miracles, and like, if you pray for people, they'll get healed. And I watched one too many times people get prayed over and the healing not happen. And it's like, and it was just felt weird and awkward. And so there's that sort of like the question of, well, back to the whole miracles thing, like, why would God do something for one person that is praying and not something for another person that is praying? So for a while, I wouldn't pray using words. I'd mostly meditate, and that's kind of the way that I still pray more often now.
Yeah.
I will pray meditating. So like, whether it's, breath, or whether it's like listening to, whether it's a scripture or another text a few times, just like listening to the words, sitting in it for a while, Lectio Divina, if you know what that is, kind of doing that style. So I'll do that a lot. Yeah. But for me, there's some connection to like breath and connecting with God. And so just sitting in silence and kind of like the whole mystics idea of it, that you connect to this sort of this deeper well, this deeper source, like all that stuff, like still, in the Christian tradition, I guess there's a huge, like robust sort of style of that. But I will say, a few years ago, like 2 years ago, when I started here and there incorporating words, I think one of the first times I said words to God again a few years ago, I was like in tears.
Really?
Just saying like, "Hey God," and then just all of a sudden I just felt like tears, and I was like. I kind of missed it, Yeah. And so I'll do that every once in a while. It's still not as periodic or as often as like meditation for me, because meditation's been huge. Like I've had some really great experiences with meditation. But like, those prayer lists will come out and I'll read them and pray it for them. And there's something that it does, even if I don't know the person, like there's just something within me that I feel that's like you were talking about, that sense of empathy,
Yeah.
And so I don't really know if God responds to prayers.
Yeah.
I tend to have sort of the belief that God is with us and intimately like is immanent and is like present. Yeah. And so God feels. And so as we feel, God feels. And so maybe that's kind of how God changes in a sense, like I don't really have that belief that God is unmoving and unchangeable. Right. I think that's a very, cold-hearted God. If God is love, then love is moved. Yeah. Like love is moved to tears. Right. When Jesus cries, I think Jesus legitimately cried. I don't think it was just like this, Jesus is doing that because the prophet said that at one point he would shed tears, and it's like this rigid, like fulfilling of the prophecy. Like I think Jesus was legitimately moved. And so if, whatever, as Christians, if we believe that like Jesus is in some, mystical way, like part of the Trinity, like God incarnate. Like if that's how God acted in a body, I think that's how God acts in sort of this, ever-present, omnipresent form. So yeah. So I tend to think that God enters into that space with us. So maybe that's how prayer works. But
maybe,
yeah.
I don't know. Like, I feel like we just asked this question. We're just like, I don't know. Maybe. Sometimes it makes me feel good.
Yeah. It's like a both and. I don't know if I'd fully, like you said, I don't know if I'd fully just say, it's all psychological. It's like brings you psychological, physiological benefits. Yeah. That's kind of like the whole will thing. Like if we just chop, like there's no direction to the world, I feel like it robs my life of something. Right. So yeah, to just say it's fully psychological, I feel like robs it of the mystical thing that happens that we can't explain. And maybe someday we'll have an objective answer to it. Yeah. In science, but right now we don't. And so just let it be magic. Yeah. Magic is cool sometimes.
It is cool.
I think we should do one more.
Do one more? Okay.
Yeah, because that would balance out 2 and 2. So I think we're doing pretty good on time, but
So there's this. All right, last one.
Yeah.
All right. How do you understand the crucifixion through process theology?
Oh, that's a fun one.
That's a spicy question. Okay. How do we understand the crucifixion through process theology? So traditionally, all Christians, like if you find yourself in the Christian camp, define themselves as they look at the incarnation, crucifixion, and resurrection of Christ, and they most Christians, I would think, I mean, maybe I don't know, I'd be curious to see like arguments of someone who doesn't hold that but still calls himself a Christian, like hold on to those things as being like things that did something, right? Whether they were real, like whether like how they function, but like all of them hold that these things were salvific in some way, meaning like they save us. And then also we can talk about what being saved means, but like they all say like even like everyone would say like, yeah, this is important, and these three things had some sort of big bearing on the planet and creation. That's all called atonement theory, right? So like, how do we rectify this thing between, you know, humans and God, this divide between humanity and God? And there's been lots of ways to talk about how the crucifixion plays into that, like, and all of these kind of come from different schools of thought, and they're all like usually culturally bound. So one of the more popular ones, particularly among like the early church, was like this idea of the Christus Victor, meaning that God defeated Satan in some way. So they actually saw like the universe as being like, well, there's God and there's Satan, and Satan is a real being, and God in by dying on the cross, Jesus in dying on the cross, somehow defeats Satan through his resurrection, and that is how we are saved. Like we were property of Satan, and God died. And somehow that through God defeated Satan that way. There's also ideas where another theory was that Jesus has paid a ransom, that we were in debt to Satan, and God paid Jesus' death paid our debt to Satan and ransomed us from the devil. Yeah. And there's also one that we all kind of, primarily growing up in the United States and now, are probably mostly familiar with, is what they would call like the like penal substitutionary atonement theory, meaning that it wasn't Satan who was condemning us to hell, was taking us to hell. Yeah. It was the fact that we had upset God. Yeah. And so we were, Jesus in some way was paying a debt, but not paying a debt to Satan. Jesus' death was paying a debt to God the Father, and that is what sets humanity free. Yeah. That's where probably a lot of it, like, have been heard. Like, so if you go, like, I know I spent a good chunk of my teenage years at different like youth events, and a lot of those youth events ended with an altar call. Yeah. And so the idea was like, yeah, like you were bad, and Jesus's crucifixion paid a price, paid a debt that you couldn't pay. Yeah. And now you were delivered by the blood of Jesus, right? And so that's
and grace is accepting that payment that Jesus gave for you on your behalf.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the struggles I have with like penal substitution theory is it doesn't do anything with the resurrection. Yeah. Like, it's like Jesus died, he could have stayed dead. Yeah. And yet, like, that feature is nowhere in. Like, that's
well, like usually what people do is they bring in the other parts of it. They like bring in the other atonement theories, but they make penal substitutionary atonement the like main one. Yeah. Even though that's the newest one out of the three.
Now, what's interesting is all of these atonement theories are contextually bound, meaning they all make sense if you are living in the time in which they were first theorized. So, like, this idea of Jesus being a king coming to rescue you was in a time when the best you could hope for was a good king. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like, a good king meant a big difference between like having a good, fair, just king would have been seen as benefit, as opposed to some other sort of like a despot, you know, like who just sought to like exploit all that. And, you know, we all know like there probably weren't many good kings because power corrupts. You have the penal substitutionary atonement theory comes around at the same time as the Renaissance, and like as humans like start taking this more humanistic bent. We had this idea of there was like rules, like kings live inside the rules. The Magna Carta was signed, right? This idea of like all people live under laws, and there was this divine law that we had broken, and because we had broken this divine law, like that's what caused us to be in this state of, you know, disgrace, where God had to, like, still the law had to be satisfied, this law being like some sort of thing. Like, up to that point, laws were just whatever the ruler said. There was no such thing as like an actual ontological law. It was just like, oh, the king said that, you know, wearing purple is illegal. Well, then he changed his mind and made it red, you know, so like, right? Like, there was no like law, right? But like, it wasn't until we theorized and like, you know, like in the Renaissance, things like that, like maybe like there is like natural law. There is like this, you know, law exists outside of, you know, humanity or something. And so, of course, that's where Beelzebub theory, because it had like the stuff come in. None of those I find it particularly interesting. No. I don't care about any of I don't think the devil's real. I have a hard time with, like, you have a God who can't do what God wants to do. Like, this God is all powerful and yet can't just forgive
And God
people.
needed to, like, murder God's own son brutally on a cross to, like, satisfy some sort of anger. How is that God equal love? I don't have it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. And so for me, like, where does a crucifixion fit in? And I'm like, well, why was Jesus crucified? Well, because he pissed off people.
Yeah.
Right? Because he made the wrong people mad.
Yep.
When you come in and you are proposing a new way of being, one that sets, like, that says to the powers that be, we don't need you.
Yeah.
We can do just fine on our own. We don't need your temple. We don't need your Rome. We don't need the Pax Romana.
Yeah.
We don't need to be citizens. We can like cultivate this whole existence that exists outside of, like, the structures that you have created for us. We can foster a beautiful and flourishing life outside of it. That's how you get killed.
Yeah.
Right. That's why they went, like, COINTELPRO. That's why we went off Black Panthers. Yeah. Like, oh, you try to build something outside of this the institutional, like, structures that we made for you. Boom. That's why they killed them. So when you exist like someone like that, like Jesus, like any of these people who say that, like, no, like they'll kill you.
Yeah.
What does it have to do with our salvation? I think what it does is, I don't think that I owe a debt to God.
No.
In that sense. I don't believe that that's the case. I think that what happened through Jesus is I believe that we had a human being, and I don't know if this is a unique experience. I believe it was unique. Like, Jesus' experience is definitely unique to him. And I, like, someone who, like, we all talk about this process of being invited into participation.
Yeah.
We have a person who is so perfectly invited, like, who, like, was able to, like, embody the invitation so perfectly in a way that we haven't seen since, or maybe we have, I don't know, but, like, that embodied it to such an extent, that lived a life so full of love, that, like, inevitably challenged power structures and God itself killed. And it points to us to be like, yes, this is what happens to everyone who lives this way.
Yeah.
And yet it also says, because, like, crucifixion is not the end, like, death doesn't have the final answer. The things that killed you don't get, like you don't stay dead. Like, it lives on past you.
Yeah. Like,
there is a wild and woolly force that's like keeps on going. That even if they kill you, like there's the old song, like, you can kill a protester, but you can't kill the protest.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you can't.
So to kind of actually connects to, like, I feel like previous questions, but Jesus's commitment to love was so high. Whatever, the way you described it, like, was so perfectly accepting of the invitation towards love. Jesus's commitment to love was so high that he never gave up on the project of flipping the unjust systems upside down to bend the arc of justice. I like using that.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
It's a good one. It's
great. Especially since you're wearing, like, dumbbells, deadlifts, and diapers. It's like, the dumbbless and deadlifts. You know, but you got to bend.
Yes.
We're going to turn into a Joe Rogan. Like,
just kidding. We're just going to be selling audit supplements and
bend the arc of justice. We're changing this podcast to bend the arc of justice. No, but, Jesus was so committed to love, and so lived it out that he died. And then you bring in the resurrection, and what the resurrection is that this will not die. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a promise that I actually do really value. Yeah. Because it, to kind of tie, like, all the things together, sort of, if we believe that there's a God that wills humanity towards flourishing, and we are invited to participate in it, we know that we're not going to accomplish it. It's an asymptote that's getting closer and closer and closer and closer, but we'll never reach it, right? Mathematically, that's what an asymptote does.
Right.
but we do what we can.
Yeah.
And there's a value in believing that someday, in some future time, that will bear fruit worldwide.
Yep.
The people that I admire, the Martin Luther Kings, the Malcolm X's, who said, you know what, we're just going to do it. We're just going to devote our lives to create a better world and just believe. Like Martin Luther King, close to when he was dying, he said, I've seen the mountaintop.
Yeah.
Right? Like he had this idea of like, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
He kind of actually knew he was going to die. I think I don't know if he like actually had intel or if he just like had this huge intuition, but he knew he was going to die soon.
Well, yeah.
But he still did it.
Yeah.
And there's so much beauty in that it's like, yeah, I want to live my life.
Yeah.
So committed to the belief that God wills flourishing, and I want to follow the invitation. And I also want to live with that sort of hopefulness that death is not the end of it for me, or death does not kill the movement.
Yeah.
Towards love and flourishing.
Yeah.
And justice.
Yep. That'll preach.
Yeah.
That'll preach.
Yeah. So, that was the way that the like questions laid out, I feel like it
works.
Was good. Yeah,
good.
Cool. Should we move to a little bit of what's hyping us up real
Hype
quick,
zone,
and then we can close it out?
Yep. What's been hyping me up lately? I guess just the fact that it's already public on my socials. We're having a baby.
On your shirt.
So we're having a baby.
Yeah,
that's exciting. My wife and I, we are expecting, and it's very exciting.
It's awesome, man.
And yeah, that's been hyping me up. That has, it's just been an incredible experience so far. It's been. Yeah, I don't know. I've like it's very easy to get overwhelmed. Like I think about like, fuck, we're having a baby, and I was like, oh my god, we're having a baby. Like it's there's just so many feelings. Like I find myself like getting really emotional about like we were watching Bob's Burgers last night, and it was like the season finale of like whatever the season just wrapped up, and it ends, and so like I'm a huge Bob's Burger fan. I think it's one of the best shows on television. To be doing as long as they have and still be funny.
Yeah.
And still Bob's Burger is like one of those shows where it's like it's good. Like most families like you see on like TV are like terrible, but like Bob Belcher and Bob and Linda, they're like good parents.
Yeah.
Like they're not perfect. They make mistakes, but like they love their kids and their kids love them. Their kids are really weird, and like their parents are like, you are weird. That's okay. That's what makes you special. Like be weird. It's fine. But like this final episode is about like one of the kids, like Louise, is putting together this project about Amelia Earhart. And then there's also, but it's like the Mosey episode. So these two like arcs come together, and Louise is like really like upset because like the Amelia Earhart dies, and she's like, well, what's the point of having this hero who dies? And like her mom, Linda, she was like, well, it's because like she lived this such big life that I can be here and I can encourage you to go out and live this big, beautiful life that I know you're going to be capable of. Like she dreamed these huge dreams, so you can dream even bigger ones. And like, I'm like, fuck, that's beautiful. Like, I'm just like, I find stuff all the time like this, and I find myself getting like really kind of emotional about it. And it's just like, I'm just like, ugh.
Those moments are hitting you even harder.
They hit hard.
Yeah,
they
that's
hit
beautiful.
hard. Yeah, because I'm just like, I want to have a kid. I want them to live a good life. It's good.
That's a good hype zone.
Yeah. So that's what's been hyping me up. So basically, anything that's like guaranteed to get a good cry, I'm just like, that's it.
Yeah, that's a good. I feel like I have a few coals in the fire, if that phrase works for this. Watching Better Call Saul.
Yep.
Season 6. So it's heating up, and also I'm just like coming to the end.
What episode are you on?
So I think 3 or 4.
Okay, so have you watched any since we got ramen earlier, like last week?
Yeah, we haven't watched.
You haven't watched anything? Okay, dang it.
No, it's because watching Ted Lasso right now.
Okay.
So, and then playing Tears of the Kingdom, Legend of Zelda. That's phenomenal. Go get it. So yeah, that's just got a few calls, but all of it, like Ted Lasso's got all the feels, and I just feel like it does a good job of. My partner Krista and I have been talking about it. What Ted Lasso does so well is it touches on social topics, but not in a forced way, and sort of a natural way that these characters have already lived this life. Like it talks about immigration. It talked about like there was a whole like coming out episode of one of the players that's queer, and so it's just so touching, and you just like feel it, like just the topics they touch on. You know, there's infertility. There's like one episode where one of might be ruining it for people, but where one of the characters has a bunch of nudes that are leaked, and then like how they respond to that, and it's just like all these real life things. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks. Bye.